Alrighty guys, we're going to cut some valve seats. We got our new valves. We have new intake and exhaust valves here, and we need to cut the seats. These valves you don't want to cut because they have a stellite coating on them, a hardness coating, and you don't want to dig through that. So we're going to cut the seats to match the valves, and we will not be lapping the valves in. We're going to cut them so they actually set in there right. We're going to start with the intake. We're going to set our guide in place, and the first thing we do is we're going to cut a 60-degree cut in this thing. And we're using a set of New Way valve seat cutters. And these things are pretty sharp still, so we don't want to push down very hard. We just want to make a nice even motion with it. And it will cut that seat. Now I put some marker in here so I can see what the heck is going on inside of here. And we're going to cut that about to that point. This is all kind of feely stuff here. You kind of got to get to know what you're doing by just kind of the feel of it. This is a 30, and this is going to cut above the valve seat. And we just want to put a nice even pressure on that and take a look and see what we got. We can see that our 45 is still pretty wide. So we want to cut this just a touch more. Then if we still have doubts, we'll put that 45 in there and bring it back up. Yeah, we're a couple of millimeters thick there. Get rid of the junk. And I think I'm going to use the 45 and bring that bottom up a little bit. Now you can see we're quite a bit thinner. And what I'm talking about here is there's black magic marker I put on here, and only the 45 has it left on there. We cut a 60 down below, we cut a 30 above, and we're going to cut a 45 here. And the 45 is what's actually going to hit the valve, or the seat of the valve. And this is the 45. And we're going to do a nice light cut of that and see what we got there. And I would say, if anything, we're just a touch wide on it. But what we're going to do now is we're going to color that in again, and then we're going to put our valve in here, and we're going to run the valve around and see what kind of mark it makes inside of our Sharpie marking. Usually I'd have a magic marker doing this. It makes a nice wide stroke, but you know what? Somebody has absconded with it. So I'm just going to color all this back in. Then I want to grab our intake valve. I'm going to set it in here. And we're just going to twirl it around so we can see where this is hitting that intake valve at. We can see by our mark here, we're pretty low on the valve. And what that means is when you go in here to our 60 and we need to cut a little bit more, and we can raise that up on our valve just a little bit. Right now it's at the very bottom of it and up to about there. We have a pretty wide seat here, so it's not going to hurt us to bring that up a little bit with the 60. I think this is our guide we were using. Yeah, these have a 5.5 millimeter valve stems. So we're going to cut with a 60 just a bit more. And bring that up on the valve just a bit. Now while I'm turning this, I'm trying not to put any influence in it one way or the other. I'm just trying to give a straight down push on it. That's really what we want to do. I'm pretty sure that brought it up quite a bit. So let's pull that back out. We'll grab our Sharpie. We'll color this back in again and get some nice fresh Sharpie everywhere. Now I know there's people with much better valve cutting equipment than I have, but this is the way I do it in my shop. Better or worse, right or wrong, this is the way I do it. Wipe our marker off of our valve here, best we can. We'll put this baby in here and give it another twirl. See what it looks like. All right, now we're up on it a little bit. I like that. We are about, millimeter and a half to 2 millimeters wide on our seating area. And we're seating all the way around. So, yeah, that feels pretty good. Our valve guide's got just a touch of slack, but not too much. So that's all pretty good. Now we're going to do the same thing, except on the exhaust side. And I've already cut it, or covered it with our Sharpie. So once again, we're going to go in and do our 60 first. We may need to adjust this a bit. Yep, we need to adjust our bits in a little bit because they're going to hit the side of the cylinder head here. So we need to adjust these in slightly. So I'm going to loosen this up. I'm going to slide this down, tighten it back up. Do the same thing on the other two. And that'll give us our clearance around our cylinder head here. Yep, that'll do. Now, judging from what we just learned on our intake valve, we're going to give this just a touch more 60 degree cutter than we did when we started the other one. Yeah, I'll see what happens with that. All right, we'll cut a little 30 in there. Now this cutter with the more cutters on it, head with more cutters on it, it cuts a lot easier. Let's take a look at that. Let's say we're pretty good. We'll hit that with the 45. I'm going to guess that's about all we want to do on that one. Yeah, it looks like it's cutting good all the way around. Back to the Sharpie. Now, if I was really cool, I'd be doing this with a blue Sharpie on the intake and red on the exhaust. Unfortunately, the Sharpie supply around here is pretty darn slim and limited. Now we'll grab our exhaust valve and we'll do the same thing with it. We'll set it down in here and give them a twirl. We just want to do it enough where we can see where it's hitting the surface at. Here, that finger a little nicer. You can see on this one we're quite a ways out. There's more valve underneath it cut than there is above. So we need to come in here with our 30 again and lower that down a little bit. Now our width isn't bad. I don't mind that so much, but we need to take our 30 and we need to cut this down just a bit. This will lower where the valve hits the seat on the valve face there, or the valve seating area, I guess you'd call it. It's on the back side of the face. Now let's give it another feel. Pull our guide there. I think this is going to lower us on our valve quite a bit, just that little bit of cutting. Alrighty. Grab our exhaust valve. We're gonna wipe off what we have on here now. That's pretty good. Try to use the nicer finger this time. Yeah, we're down a bit now. I don't know how well you can see that. Maybe that's better. You can see that we have the edge out here, we have the black, and then we have quite a bit in here. We're going to take the 30 and we're going to cut that back just a little bit more. Now, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people who say, well, I round those valves all the time and never had any problem. Well, I can tell you from my Honda training, they do not want you cutting these valves. They don't want you seating them in or valve grinding compound or anything else. Let's see what we get this time. Yeah, that's better. Our spring seats are still in here, so we're good to go there. And we need to find a couple of valve seals. Once again, we're using all Honda parts on these. So this is a 12209 KL4005. Slide our valve seals on here. I'm going to grab a little screwdriver. That'll fit down through that hole. Set these on here, like so. And then go pop. Done. Works pretty well. Now in this engine, these are both the same. Intake and exhaust are the same, so no worries about getting that mixed up. There we go. Valve guides installed, or valve seals installed. We're going to take a look at our springs and figure out which end has the most winding on it. The close winding, and I'm putting it down. Reason being, that means there's less spring weight that's actually going up and down. Maybe that'll make it last better. Or these are new too, by the way. And we're also using new cotters. This is also a Honda tool. Or tool from Honda, I guess I should say. Well, that's not going to reach like that. Let's see if it'll stay on this little stand I got it on if I slide it over a bit farther. I think it will. Turn this up a touch. See what we're on down here. We're not on anything down here. You think? Yep, now we're on our valve. Whoa! Goodness me, it's about all to go to straight to heck. All right, need to do something a bit different here. We need to slide this way over this way to get all this going here. That'll do the top. That'll do the bottom. Let's compress our valve spring before we drop the head off into the floor. Now we'll set our cotters in place. Grab another one. Set him in from this side. The little end down, in case you're curious. There we go. One in. One to go. Once again, we'll attempt our balancing act. Somebody's really trying to get a hold of me. Probably a broke four-wheeler or a broke motorcycle. Because people sure aren't calling me to work on cars, I can tell you that. Because I'd tell them no right now. All right, that's our intake valve in. Looks like they're sitting pretty good. I'm going to get a hammer and thump those. A lot of people say don't do it. I say if it's going to fall out, I want it to fall out now. I want to seat those sweethearts in there. There we go. That's the valves in our head. Everything looks pretty good. Alrighty, we got some more parts. So let's put this part of this machine back together. We got our cylinder out being bored, and it's not bored yet, but it's getting bored. And we should get it back by the end of the week. So let's go ahead and pop our little arm off here. Just because it's going to make it easier, and I got a new one. Because this one here, it's worn clear down to the metal on the end. Let me set stuff down here. You can see that this is worn clear down to the metal and chain is rubbing on it. So we got a new one. And it looks like this, where it doesn't have any metal on the end the chain's going to rub on. Focus. We got that covered. We have a brand spanking new Honda cam chain. And there that sweetheart is. It's a 14401 HN5 671. Hope it's the right thing. I'm betting it is. I got it from a pretty stinking reliable source, so not too worried about that. Now we need to figure out our timing marks here. And before, we had this mark lined up with that. So we'll see if we can get that to happen again here. And then we'll see what it looks like, see if that's right or wrong. We can time this without marks, just easier with marks. So let's set this chain on both of our sprockets here. Set our cam in place. See how close we are. I can tell you right now, we're only about a mile off. We need to be more where this 350 dot lines up with it. I think that's where we had it before. I don't remember for sure, but I think that's it. Trying to hold this cam and put this on without getting in your way. It's not working very well. See, one more tooth maybe. All right, that cam's in. We're at top dead center and our 350 mark lines up. Not sure how well you can see that, but I will show you a little bit better here. Our 350 mark lines up with our arrow, and we are at top dead center. I know that because of the way that it is. That rod is all the way to the top. Alrighty, next we need to put our cam tensioner, our cam holder in here. And this sweetheart is kind of a pain in the butt to get in here, but not too horribly bad. Goes in just like that. Should kind of stay there. I want to put a little bit of Loctite on this bolt. Certainly had some on it before. We'll torque that down. That's pretty good. Then we'll put our new cam chain tensioner in. Now it has a washer that goes behind it, and then the bolt goes on this side. So that way it kind of gets trapped in there like that. This is another case where we're going to put just a little bit of Loctite on here. There we go. Trying to put it in the wrong hole. Certainly wasn't going to go up there. Get that centered on that bolt. So when I tighten it up, it'll still move. That's the main thing. There we go, kind of like that. Mark's still lined up, so we're good there. And then we have our actual tensioner to put in here. This I didn't replace, probably should have, but I didn't. But we can see when we set this thing in here, it's going to be way back in where this was fully extended and that chain was just flopping around. So I'll see if we can't get this to work here. We're going to push this in, slide that back in, then as this thing takes up slack, it ratchets and it can't go back in. So we're going to try to do the impossible here and set this in here like so. We're going to get one bolt caught. See where those bolts went. Here they are. I had a piece of goo on the end of my tool there. Didn't figure that'd be very good to have in the engine, so we're going to get it wiped off. We're going to start that one in, then we're going to grab the next one. We're going to start him down here in the other hole. Now, I got my finger holding this tension in until I get these bolts started here, like so. And we're going to run one in, then we're going to take the other one out, Loctite it, put it back in, and then take the other one out because I want to keep all this in place. Torque him down. Oh. Now, our cam chain will be much better off. Now I am going to release that and make sure we don't have too much pressure on our cam chain because we don't want that either. Let me come in here with a curved pick and try to put the back of that down, and we'll work that back in like that, and it will take up a couple of clicks, and there we go. That's pretty stinking good, and that will keep taking up slack as it wears. What wears out cam chains? Not changing the engine oil is really hard on these. If the engine oil is changed on a regular basis, these things last pretty good. But when you don't change the oil, they don't. Now, this guy just bought this, and it was smoking like mad, so hopefully we can get him educated up to the point that he keeps this thing in good shape. This washer went on here to go behind our starter clutch, and we'll start setting that back in place. Our starter clutch and our flywheel. Give that a quick wipe down. There we go. We'll slide all this into place. See where our keyway is. I think that bearing doesn't flip it over the keyway. Oh yeah, there we go. Good, good, good. There we go. Sitting in place. Turns one way, not the other. Just like it should. Wipe our flywheel out, get all the gritty off the magnets. Now we need to pop this into place, but we can't leave this bolt in. We just need to snug it down and then take it back out, and that'll set the flywheel onto that taper and keep it in place. I think that's a 17 if I remember right. Most of the time I remember where works pretty good. Not always. If you ask my wife, I bet she says it doesn't work as good as I think it does. All right, that's set in place. We got our drive gears on here. We got a reverse lockout set in place. We got our engine cases kind of cleaned up a little bit. They're never cleaned up enough because this thing had a ton of stuff on it. All right, we're using Suzuki 1207B silicone gasket X-Star, but it's a Suzuki product, and it's a darn fine product, 1207B. Now, when you're putting this cover on, there is a gear position sensor here, and we need to make sure that lines up with a slot on the end of the shift drum. So here we go. We'll see if we can get it to line up the first time. I think I've got it pretty close. Yep, went on. Alrighty, that's that cover on. We just need to put some bolts in it. Oh, nope, we didn't put our starter drive in. That would be a short trip. Let me grab our starter drive here. We're going to give it just a spritz with the contact cleaner. And this must sit in here. Like that. And that drives the starter. Starter motor comes on here, zing, and turns that, and then it turns the engine. But it goes the other way, so it makes the engine turn. All right, one more time. We'll see what all we forgot as we put this thing together. Seated over our dowel pins. And we are close enough. I know that's engaged now. So I'm going to just tap that rest of the way in place. When I say tap, I mean tap. We're not hitting this thing hard. We're just driving it up on the dowel pins. That's all it really needs to be done there. See, I think these are the bolts for here. Maybe not. See if we can find something about the right length. There we go. That was good. Too long. Oh yeah, that's good. Yep, one more. I think that's all. Now let's go back and seat them down. I think we already did that one. And that one. Let's work our way around. Make sure we're applying even torque to all of them. That'll do. Cover is installed. Now we got the other cover that goes on over here. The problem is I don't have a gasket for it. And the gasket did rip in two places. We got a rip here and a rip here, so that's not going to go back on. I'll have to get a gasket for this, and then we'll put that on there. But I just wanted to show you this bottom end is going together, and it's going wonderfully. This is our new first over piston. And we're going to go ahead and slide this sweetheart on here. This is our expansion ring for our oil control rings. And remember, its end is right there. So we want to turn this thing over here. And we'll start this bottom one right about there. We'll make sure we come across the ends first as we come around, just to make sure they stay in place. And now this one's over here. So when we turn this way, we're going to put our next ring, our top oil control ring, right here. And there's that. And we'll grab our first compression ring, or second groove. Since this is right here, we're going to turn this a quarter turn, and we're going to put him on here. Now, there's 100 different ways of how you put rings on the piston and where the ring end gaps go and all that kind of stuff. Jeepers, I keep missing. There we go. And what you're looking at is the way I do it. Right or wrong, now you need to look at these and make sure the marks are up. Let's see if we got lucky on that one. Yep, marks are up. And this has markings right here on the end. This has an R on here, and this says 2.5 for 0.25 over. There's no way the camera's going to pick that up, so I'm not even going to mess with it. Now this one is over there, so this one is going to go over here, halfway across the piston from it. Now then, we're going to turn this one this way a little bit, that one that way a little bit. There we go. Now we need to put one of our circlips in. Now these pistons sit on here sideways, so the intake would be back here in this engine, and the exhaust would be over here aligned with the wrist pin. Since it looks like it'll be easier to put the exhaust one in last after we mount it, we're going to put the side, one of the intake side in first. And this is another thing, there's about 300 different ways of doing. And I don't have any kind of super special tools to do this with, and I'm sure you're just looking at the back of my hand here. But we're going to align the end of that up, that end, put it in the circlip groove in the piston. And then we're going to push upwards on the bottom of this to make that thing conform to it. Grab our pick, work the bottom of it up, and pop it in place, just like that. Now, if we can rotate this in here and it stays in there, we know everything's in good place, good shape. So we'll push on the edge of that, and it does rotate, and it is in, so that's good. We're going to put some of this assembly lube on it, because I sure as heck don't want to put this together dry, just because of the looks of that wrist pin itself. I'm going to give that a little shot of this stuff in there as well. Take this and I'm going to go just spread that all around in there, kind of like so. Then we'll grab our wrist pin. We'll set it over the piston with the end part of the piston facing backwards towards the intake. We can go ahead and start this in here, because I'm having a devil of a time starting it back there. Then we'll slide it down, line it up with the wrist pin of the connecting rod. And slide that sweetheart on through. There we go. The piston is now part of the engine. We're going to clean rag and we'll plug up the hole below the piston, because we don't want anything or other circlip falling down in there or anything, so we'll stick a rag down here to plug up the hole. Then we're going to rotate this whole engine around. There we go. And we'll put our other circlip in this side. Let's roll this back so you got a little better view here. Hey, how about some light? Oh yeah, that brings out things just right around, didn't it? Okay, plug up our hole going in the bottom of our engine here. Then we'll set our other circlip in. This one's always harder, and I'm sure I'm going to block your view of everything. I want to turn this more like this. Get that in caught in there. Like that, and then shove part of it in, like that. Then grab our pick, get it caught in the edge there, and pop him in place. Now this one is not in its groove all the way around. So we need to make sure, pop, there it is. And it turns, so we're good there. And that's that. That is on. Now we need our base gasket. I conveniently had that file on the floor down there for some reason. Figure out which way this sweetheart goes. And it looks like both of our pins are on that side. So this sweetheart's going to go this way. I have one dowel pin there, and I've got one still MIA that goes on the other side over here. Let me find one of those, and then we'll go ahead and slide the cylinder on. Oop, he's too big. Now I had the unknown machinist bore this, so we know it's going to be about right. There we go. There we go. Cylinder's on. Now we already redid our head, so we'll get this sweetheart set on here. Let me find my head gasket. That's why those dowel pins wouldn't come out. They are not exactly round anymore, but they'll work. Alrighty, our head is on. Yep. That's when it's getting tight. Those sweethearts are all torqued down. Alrighty, those two are in. So I'm trying to figure out how I can do this without being in your vision, but maybe this will work. I turn the wrench upside down. Hold it right there. We'll snug this down a little bit. See what we got? That feels pretty stinking good. A little bit of drag, but not too much. Let's do our intake valve. We're going in about 0.15 millimeter. And let's go ahead and loosen this one up. This is our intake side. Get our feeler gauge in here. Too loose. She's a bit loosey-goosey. And you see, I'm turning this very small amount. And that's about right. It just doesn't take much. Let's make sure both of these are snug now. That one's good. That one's good. Oh, I fell off a block. They're still looking in the right direction, I believe. And we'll go ahead and check this again now that we tighten that up some more. And it's good. I think that'll do it for adjusting our valves. I'm going to pop this O-ring out and see if I don't have another O-ring. Boy, that's a tough son of a gun right there. And this should be our O-ring for there. Yep, it broke, so that's good. Well, it's good if we're taking it out, not good if we need to reuse it again. That broke in 3 pieces. Not a very flexible O-ring anymore, I can tell you that. Glad we got one. There we go. Now we're ready to put our cover on. There we go. Those are tightened down. This baby is pretty much ready to go back in the frame now. So we'll do that coming up.